we want to talk about this France-Denmark game then that's coming up a little bit later on today. France, the holders, got off to, Australia obviously got off to a great start in their opening game, but in the end it became a sort of one-sided. They swept aside Australia, didn't they, France, in the end to win 4-1.
Totally. It could have been 6 or 7. I thought what was the interesting thing about that is the fact that France dug themselves this hole and then managed to get themselves out of it. So I think we can tell a little bit more about France than some of the other teams. I mean, you were saying that about how much can we tell from Spain after the Costa Rica game. And I think maybe the England game last night puts the way Iran played against England a little bit into perspective. But I think if you look at that, the manner of that opening goal as well that Australia scored, I mean, Benjamin Pavard has had a lot of stick about it and will probably end up getting dropped for the game against Denmark today off the back of that. They're going to make a few little defensive changes. And the fact that, Luca Hernandez had a World Cup ending and the first half of next season ending injury in the same move. I mean, that is one of those moments, I think, where you can easily let the heads drop and think, God, this isn't going to be our World Cup. One of our best players is just, done his cruciates. But the fact that they recovered from it, that they didn't really panic, I thought was quite a good sign for them.
I've got to ask you, Andy, because I watched Giroud at Montpellier when he was breaking through as a player that won the French Liga, and he could break Thierry Henry's record.
Yeah.
Today.
I think...
Is it tomorrow? Today. I'm getting confused. Well, I've so many.
It's just a string of days with loads of football in them. I know.
I mean, I've had so many conversations about Giroud, and he's actually a player that I've always think, do you know what? He is an absolutely full striker. His record at all the clubs he's been.
And so underrated.
This year at AC Milan. AC Milan is a perfect example how well he's done for them this year.
Exactly, Cass. And it's not just the goals. They're all important goals. And it was the same in the back end of last season when they were going for the title in Serie A and eventually won it. That they were all key goals. He's still really athletic. He keeps himself in great nick. And I think initially there was a little bit of snobbery towards him in France because he's not an academy product. He's different. He's got varied interests. He's not really like other footballers. He's a winemaker. He's a sommelier. He's got quite a wide palette. So I think what was interesting is when you talk to the players after the game, and I talked to some of them, talked to Hugo Lloris and Giroud himself after the game against Australia. Everyone and Pavard as well, all the players are so pleased for him. Normally, as a player, it's a team sport, but at the same time, it's intensely competitive between those players. So it's quite rare, actually, to have the other players come out and go, he's a top guy, he does so much for us, we're all so delighted for him. He's one of the good guys. And I think that was quite interesting, but it's almost like a long service reward. I mean, we know Thierry Henry is up there. He's Thierry Henry, and I don't think anyone's sort of confusing, how important he is in French football history. But with Giroud, it's almost as if the goals, because he's not really about the goals. He's not just about the goals. Anyway, he's influential in the 2018 World Cup when he didn't even score.
Well, let's hear from Giroud, because you did speak to him after that Australia result, and you asked him about what it means to match the all-time leading goal scorer Thierry Henry for France. This is what he had to say.
It means a lot, to be next to Thierry Henry on a top scorer, national team top scorer sheet is unbelievable. And I couldn't hope a better start of the World Cup. We react well after conceding this goal at the beginning of the game. It was a bad start, but the most important is that we've shown a great team character,
So 51 goals now it is for Olivier Giroud alongside Thierry Henry after those 2 goals against Australia. And we sort of mentioned there about him being so underrated. And I love the fact you're saying his teammates just adore him. And he just goes about his business quietly, gets into the squad. Karim Benzema, everyone's expecting, obviously, will play a massive role. Then he gets injured and then comes in, slots into that France team, no problem. And as I say, scores 2 and becomes now the joint all-time leading goal scorer. And inevitably, I assume we think he'll break it now in this tournament. Yeah,
I think we do, because I would imagine France going relatively deep. But as you say, Nat, the replacement of Benzema is quite interesting because in 2 senses. Firstly, because Didier Deschamps was quite vocal about the fact that he might not even bring Giroud to the tournament. And that all seemed weird to us as Premier League fans who knew that even when he wasn't in the 11 at Arsenal and Chelsea, he did a great job for the club. But because he was deposed in the way that he was just before the Euros by Benzema, Deschamps had a little bit of a doubt. Is his nose put out of joint? Do we want him hanging around? And that's always such a consideration at a major tournament. It's not just about picking the best players. It's about picking the personalities that will give you harmony. But I think he said in recent weeks, Deschamps, that Giroud had proved to him by the way he was around the squad that he could be his backup. And it's a good job they brought him because of what happened to Benzema. But do you know what, Cass? I think the team actually fits together a little bit better with Giroud.
No, I totally agree. And he does so many things, and I think, fair play to you. You're not as good as Henry or Benzema in other ways, but the team, certainly having two lightning wingers,
they play to his strengths in that sense. Yeah.
Well, Mbappe one side and Dembele the other. They're like lightning, and all he wants to be is be in that area in like a 5-yard radius where he can cause damage, and it keeps happening. No one can seem to stop him.
Just quickly tell us the danger that Denmark will pose. I know they've beaten France recently in the Nations League, home and away.
Yeah.
So they know how to beat them, but this is the World Cup, so it's very different.
Yeah, it's France's domain now, isn't it? I think that's the thing. But I don't think anyone in the France camp is underestimating how good Denmark are for that reason. You heard Didier Deschamps and Hugo Lloris talking about them yesterday in the press conference. And the thing is, it's not just the fact that they beat them twice. They were so much better than them in the last game at Copenhagen. And there was this sort of collective sigh in French football, a sense of, are we actually going to win the World Cup? Maybe we won't win the World Cup after that performance in Copenhagen, in which they were really, really poor. So, they know how good Denmark are. But something I was talking to Christian Eriksen about yesterday in the press conference, something I asked him about is, I said, before the tournament last year in the Euros, I spoke to a few of the Denmark players. I spoke to Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, and there was a sense, this quiet confidence that they could do something. So the fact that they got to the semi-finals of the Euros is a surprise to everyone apart from them. But I said to Eriksen, this time they know you're coming. It's different, especially with Eriksen back to his best as well and playing so incredibly well as obviously. Yeah. I think there's a sense that, especially after that Tunisia performance, that they have to meet an expectation. It's totally different. And unlike France, they don't quite have the attacking tools. They've got everything you want in defence and midfield, but in the front part of the pitch, maybe not.
If they thrive on being the underdog, whereas against Tunisia, they were obviously the favourites, but slightly different now coming into this game.
Different pressure.
Yeah, very much so. And it's been great to have you with us.